It is 7:02. I will go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the Norton Town Finance Committee to order. It is Monday, March 14th, 2022. Happy Pi Day, everyone. I will take a quick roll call, but I have a sneaking suspicion a few people may join us a few minutes tardy. So we will start with the people in the room. Joe Parker.
Here.
Yelena Gordon. Oh,
I'm here.
There you are. Zach Sillis.
Present.
Bill Rotundi.
Here.
Kevin Snyder.
Here.
Kevin Bugay. Oh, Kevin's on mute, but he is here. I can see him. And I am here, and that is a quorum, but no more than a quorum. Oh, here comes Bonnie. That's good. If I could get my mouse to work. There she is. Wait for her to connect to audio. Bonnie, are you with us?
Betcha.
Wow.
Excellent.
Voice changed.
All right, so as far as I can tell, we are missing Paula, Mike Fiore, Steve Evans, and I think that's it.
Did I see an email that Mike Fiore resigned?
I didn't see that email. Did you?
I thought I did. I'll double check.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that would be great to know. Did he send it to Walter?
I remember seeing it. I'll send it to you.
Okay. All right, interesting. I'll make a little note. All right. We have a lot of guests with us tonight. Welcome, everyone. Mike, who's going first?
Well, if I could, I'll share my screen.
Fabulous.
And of course, I had this all set up, but no, that's not what I was looking for. Oh, wait a second.
It looked like the rec budget.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go to something else first, if I can call it up here. All right. You had asked about turnbacks. And,
Yes, I think Zach asked that question last week.
Yep. And so, just to give you an idea, I know you received this in the explanation. This is where the turnbacks came from. So under function 1, general government, there was $189,518. The bulk of that came from the $87,000 from the reserve fund, the Finance Committee reserve fund that was turned back. Then function 2, public safety, the total turned back was $593,936.49. And the bulk, there were two things, the grant received by the fire department and also some of the positions not being filled till later in the year. And also under communications, the SEMREC assessment came in lower than anticipated. The next category, education, there was $80,131.78 returned, $26,701.78 from the Norton schools, $51,013 from Southeastern Regional, and $2,417 from the agricultural school. And under Public Works, Keith returned $409.08. Good job, Keith. Human Services, $92,529.91. The bulk of that, 51,000 direct payments to veterans. They came in lower than anticipated. That's money we have to set aside because obviously the veterans agent never knows who's going to come forward during the year.
Right. So, Mike, a question on that. I know
Yep.
that we get reimbursements from the state on some of the things for the vets. So I don't know if, well, I guess my question is, does that show as turnbacks or does that get absorbed somewhere else in the budget?
That is a good question. I'll ask James how he accounts for that. But yeah,
Okay.
we do get reimbursed from the state for any payments that go out.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mike, what exactly payments are we giving the veterans? What is available to them?
So veterans that come under Section 150, Chapter 155, they're entitled to benefits to help them with some of their health bills, I believe, like with their rent. And when Estelle gives her budget, I'll have her explain all that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So under Function 9, unclassified, $1,031,639. And the bulk of that was the health insurance holiday, where we didn't have to pay health insurance for 1 month. And that was $933,460. And also unemployment came in 54,000 under anticipated. Okay.
All right.
And you have all that information. Any questions, just let us know.
Does anyone have any questions on turnbacks?
No questions, but thanks, Mike. This was really helpful.
You're welcome.
Agreed. It's great to see where the money that ends up flowing into the free cash is coming from.
All right. And now into budgets. First is Keith Silva from the Highway Department. One of the main things, Keith, most of his expenses stayed the same, except when you look at, if you go down to the bottom, surface treatment, because of the cost of fuel and the impact that could have on making asphalt, Keith has upped that a little bit. And then in his salaries, Keith is looking to add another person, and Keith can explain anything else on that. But most of the budget is similar to last year, except for that increase.
And the clothing allowance went up a little.
Right. With the new employee, obviously, we got to add some clothing allowance. Plus, in the contract, it went up slightly.
So all right, I'll be talking now. So for the new employee, I'm asking is we're getting really behind trying to keep up with the trees, and it's just the cemetery department. We're doing pretty good in there, but we're falling behind on the tree department. And like this winter, we had a real hard time trying to keep up with the winter with the snow plowing. I just don't have enough people, and the seasonal contractors, no one wants to really plow snow no more. And I just think this other employee could help out our department in a lot of ways, you know, mowing grass to cutting trees to, just the stormwater process that we do around here. And I'm falling behind on that too. So I just figured if I get another employee, it would help our department out.
And I will say, if I can, one of the things that came up in the capital meeting, there was a question about the ELP and also Camp Edith Reed, ELP Everett Leonard Park. And we were talking about, really recreation shouldn't have to worry about the ground maintenance at Everett Leonard Park, and conservation shouldn't have to worry about the ground maintenance at Camp Edith Reed. And we were saying, eventually we would like to look at putting that under the control of the highway department, as long as everyone is acceptable on that. But so just another thought on that extra position.
You should, Mike, you should bring up the rails and trails too, because.
Right. Keith also mentioned, going out to bid this coming fall will be the construction of the rail trail. So within probably 2 years, a year to 2 years, we'll also have that to maintain.
So are we currently outsourcing the landscape work at ELP and Edith Reed?
I mow it, but I don't mow it like a weekly basis. I just try, when I kind of get there, I will mow it for her.
Okay.
But it's hard to keep up like on a regular schedule, trying to maintain. Right now we're trying to do the ball field over because they got Little League going in there, and I guess it's a mess. So I've been trying to get that back in shape so they can use that.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Joe.
Keith or Mike, whoever, I may be misremembering this, but I thought somewhere along the line we had talked about that the tree cutting was done by an outside agency. Is that something different?
We
Go ahead, Keith. No, go ahead.
So what we do is we have a tree truck. So I try to get at least 3 to 4 guys go up with a tree truck. We got a brand new tree truck. It's probably 2 years old. It's a 70-footer, and we try to do trees in-house.
Okay.
The outsource is a crane. I own a 150-foot crane with an operator and a climber, and they take the trees down for us, and we take it from there. But so there's so many big trees around. If you look around town, some of these pines are 120 feet. I just can't touch them, That's what we do when we go out to bid for that. We get that $25,000 for an article because it's it costs a few dollars to get a crane in a town for a day. So that's what that's all about.
Okay, thanks. That makes sense.
More questions for Keith?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bill.
this is either Keith or Mike, I'm not sure. With all the 123 construction, with all the new sidewalks, is that the highway department or is that the homeowner who, once this is all said and done, is supposed to clear that?
The highway department will be maintaining that from well, we do the other side of 123. So we're gonna be doing from Sawmy School all the way to Red Mill Village. That's how much we're gonna have to start taking care of. So yeah, all those sidewalks will be up to the town to maintain and plow.
Okay, so the new employee would be assisting in that too?
Yeah, well, yes. We're plowing snow. Everybody has to help us. Yes. Everybody goes out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Zach.
I got a couple of questions, Keith. In this budget, where is the funds to repave roads? Is that state money that comes in? I don't see a line item for that.
I have an article here. It says surface treatment. So basically, it's only 10,000. So what that money is used for right now is the potholes. So we go out and we grind roads. We put asphalt back in them all winter and summer. We try to take care of them. The major roads that I grind and pave is from like we go out to bid for the surface bid. So the state gives me $570,000. So that's what we try to use towards like a mile road. $10,000 doesn't get you very far, blacktopping. That's just maintenance. That's all that's for is maintenance.
Okay, so there's no town funds at all for resurfacing roads? You're just waiting for whatever you get from the state?
That's it, yeah. I used to get, years ago, I think we had $50,000 in there. That was like in 98, and they just started taking it away slowly, and then next thing I know, they just said, use Chapter 90 money. So,
All right, next question I have is, about 3 years ago, you came down here near where I live and you guys repaved East Hodges Street all the way down. If you remember that, I think you guys were involved in that.
yes.
And now just 3 years later, we're now having the water department dig up the whole brand new street to replace water main. Isn't there a moratorium? I mean, it seems to me the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. I mean, we just put a brand new road in and now we're gonna rip it up and have 2 miles of pothole here. 2 years, 3 years later.
I understand your pain. It's I called them. I said, look, I want to repave this road. This road's in really bad shape, and they want to do water main. So if I have, it really stinks because if I don't pave it, the road's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a dirt road again. So I got to try to maintain some of these roads. Like Bird Street has to be done. Bird Street, if you go driving down, it's bad. I'm not doing it. They want to replace the water main in there. I'm just trying to stop until they get the water main in. But they're trying to find funds, and I'm just trying to keep the roads up so we don't have these problems. But now they're getting water main breaks down there every other a couple of times a month. So that's why they wanted to try to replace the water main down there. And I understand, and it ain't right because you try to do a good job, you try to get the roads done, and they start getting water breaks. So.
But if it was on a state road, I believe the state has either a 5 or 10 year moratorium, right? Isn't that correct?
You're right, but they're calling this type of an emergency type repair, I guess. I don't know. By the time they go out to bid, the road will probably be 4 years old by the time they get down there. But I understand. I mean, I'd like to get 5 years out of the road because every time I pave a road, they start cutting it up, it just falls apart.
And the one more, Madam Chair, is
Sure.
the highway department. Just so some things seem a little strange to me in municipal government. We have a highway department. I would have thought, at least before I came to this committee, that the highway department plowed the schools, maintained the school properties, mowed the lawns in the schools. But they have a whole separate department that does that for other schools. Wouldn't it be more cost effective to hire a couple more people on highway, give them a few more funds, and eliminate that and have one person in charge of all municipal properties, all grass, all parks, all schools, all plowing? Is that, am I being ridiculous or?
You're not being ridiculous, but you would really definitely have to sit down and figure out equipment, just getting new equipment and hiring more people. I mean, it would work, but ever since I've been here, they've done their own grass. I never cut their grass. I didn't do the ball fields, and I don't know how to do football fields and all that stuff. But I mean, we'd have to look at the other towns how they do it. Because if that's the case, I bet a grounds, you probably have 10 people just in grounds if you're going to do the whole town. If you're going to do cemeteries and schools, you're talking a few people.
Yeah, but you would have to eliminate them on the other side or move them over to your department. I mean, you have a public works garage over there. They have one behind the senior center. I don't know. They have lawn mowers. You have lawn mowers. They have backhoes over there. They have plows. You have. I mean, it doesn't seem efficient in my view.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I'm going to look at. I mean, we
Anyone
help
else?
them out. Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead. Does anyone else have questions for Keith?
The other section under Keith is snow and ice, and the recommendation that Keith has again is 80,000. And for people that may not know that are new to the Finance Committee, snow and ice is the one account that the state allows you to deficit spend. And if you increase it, you can never go backwards. So we've always left it at 80,000, and you'll see when we have town meeting, you'll see us using free cash to pay off all the amounts over the 80,000 for this year. And while Keith is here, he also has his capital request for the capital committee. All of the requests that Keith has, except for one, are existing payments on equipment that's already been purchased, and he has one new piece of equipment he's looking to buy. And you want to explain that one, Keith?
Yeah, it's a 2022 Bobcat L28. It's a small articulating loader, and the reason for this purchase is to have another machine in the winter time, so we can take care of the new sidewalks, and when we take over the rails and trails, we'll be able to maintain it with that machine. Right now, I only have one sidewalk plow, and it just ain't gonna be able to keep up with these new sidewalks when we take these over.
And also the rail trail, if we've discussed not plowing that in the winter, but we'll see what happens.
Any other questions? Any questions on the capital budget for Keith? People are quiet tonight. You're gonna get off easy, Keith.
Good.
Actually, I do have a quick question.
Sure.
I quickly looked up the Bobcat. Does that come with a snow blower attachment, or will you just use the bucket?
It'll have a snow blower and a bucket. Yes, it's almost 48 inches. This snow blower.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Keith, very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
If you don't mind, I'll skip around conservation. I know they have a meeting tonight. Maybe John can get on later, and also planning zoning. So we'll go to the town clerk's budget. Let me bring that up. Okay, so under the town clerk, you can see salaries increase due to contract negotiations. And then as far as expenses, a slight increase of $2,000, 500 in seminars and conferences, and purchase services from 8,500 to 12,000. And I know Lucia is on. If you have any questions on that. Lucia currently has 2 people in her office. Any questions on?
Anybody have questions for Lucia? Welcome, Lucia. Nice to see you.
I'm here. Thank you.
Lucia is a finance committee member also, in case you didn't know.
I did know that. All right, I'll ask Lucia. What are we increasing the purchases of services for? It seems like a significant jump. I mean, it's not a huge dollar amount, but as a percentage, it's kind of big.
That's a general code, Amy. The general code updates our bylaws for us on the website in our manuals. It's a very tedious job. I mean, it's not, you basically need almost a full-time person to keep up with that. So I send all the changes to them after the AG approves them, and they update the website and they update manuals for us. So what happened is I upped it because last year there was a lot of bylaw changes. There were a lot of strike throughs, and those just there was a hefty cost last year. So I am estimating, just in case, I mean, if there's not a whole lot of bylaw changes in the next year, money could go back. But that's the main reason it's up so high, is because of the general code.
Good to know. Thanks. Does anyone else have questions for Lucia?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, hi, Lucia. Did Brooke move on from your office to another office, or just out of Norton?
She went to the water sewer department.
Oh,
Gotcha.
It was a step up for her.
Great.
anyone else? All right, sounds like no.
And the other part of Lucia's budget is elections. And Lucia can talk more on this. We will have state elections this year, correct, Lucia?
That is correct, Mike. Yes. We have state elections. We have a primary and we have the state. I anticipate very busy due to who's not running and who's going to run. The state also, their new legislation laws are on the governor's desk to be signed, which is going to be early voting, mail-in voting. They're going to be sending the cards out to every registered voter, and then sending out ballots. And I need help on that. I'm going to have extra help at the elections. That also includes renting of a scanner, a high-speed scanner, or when we get the ballots back, when the mail-in. 2 years ago, we got almost 9,000 back, and we had to manually run them through. And we worked non-stop Monday through Sunday. This is a high-speed scanner, so when we get the ballots in, the state is saying they're going to let us run those ballots a few days before the actual election, and the scanner will scan in 300 per minute. So that's part of the costs in there also. But you're talking 20 election workers for each election. And also for next year's town election, that's also imposed that those cards are probably going to also affect our town election with mail-ins and a possibility of early voting.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Joe.
Hi, Alicia, how are you?
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Good. So I'm looking through here with the bill that's on the governor's desk. Where do we account for the postage in here? Or is that
as we go further in the budget process, you'll see that we'll be increasing the postage. It's in a separate budget.
It's not in this specific budget?
No.
Okay.
The state is saying right now that the towns are going to be, 2 years ago, the state paid for the mailing out of the ballots. No, they paid for the cards, they paid for, they sent self-addressed envelopes they did not charge the residents to mail the ballots back in, but their talk now is that the towns are going to be responsible for the whole bit of it, mailing them out, sending them back, so it's going to be pretty high postage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the elections budget?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bill.
I don't know if this is a budget per se, but just out of curiosity, when a resident mails back the ballot, where does that go?
When the mail back goes to my office,
And say the last election, how many roughly did you have, and where do they go? Like from the time you receive them to the day of the election? I mean, are they
okay.
stored securely? Are they?
Oh, definitely, they're all stored in the vault.
Okay. And how many did you what percentage would you guesstimate you got, say, at the last election?
Oh, I think it was, I do believe that it was 82%. It was pretty high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, Lucia.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. If we could go to library. I know Lee is on. Let me
I feel like
Pull
I'm
that
on the
up.
Price is Right. Lee Parker, come on down.
So Lee is on, and last year we appropriated $512,051 to the library, and this year Lee is looking for $546,157. And Lee, did you want to go into any detail?
As you can see, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. As you can see, there are some salary adjustments, some rate adjustments because of the minimum wage increase, and a salary adjustment for one position that's grossly underpaid. And I put a letter with it. I did have some comparisons from other towns. And it's still not where I would like it to be, but it's a little bit more equitable. And that's that one position that has been very busy training all the new staff. I have someone retiring this summer, and it's after that, she's been there 15 years. Everyone else will have been there hired under me. So it's all new people. And most of the rates, you can see the percentages are like 2 plus 2.
As you can see, Lee has a lot of positions down around the $15 range that
Right.
are affected, obviously, by the increase in the minimum wage.
Right. And we just can't afford to lose people. So, the more we lose people, the more we have to train, and it just takes up way too much time, which I know other departments are going through as well. We don't want to get them cannibalized from other towns to other towns.
I'm going
Do
to
you
get to
have them
that.
from the other town?
I do, Lee. Let me
Okay.
call it up.
So a lot of them don't have that position advertised in the rates that we could get, and the state didn't have up-to-date information. So I got what I could get. But most of them are paid substantially more than our supervisor. Somerset is the same size town as us, and their ranges are go all the way up to 3137, and that was as of 2018. And
Oh, wow.
the other ones that don't have the asterisks, that was from even farther back, I think.
What position did you say this was, Lee?
Circulation supervisor, which is that person is responsible for the main desk, and that's the face of the library when people come in, and all the desk staff are new, relatively new. We have some subs that have been there for a while. As I said, everyone after our cataloger leaves, everyone left will be someone that has been hired since I was director. So that's a lot of training, and he had to do it during COVID with people masked and remotely from remote desktop. So it was pretty intense. And we had to deal with contactless pickups and just a lot of different procedures. We've also been doing fine free, which our board did approve that going forward too. So everything's training all the time, training people. We just changed a lot of policies to make it so it decreases the barriers for people. And everyone's been very appreciative, but it's just a lot of training. We added Chromebooks, we added hotspots, crafts to go, virtual programs, hybrid programs, and we have 10,275 active borrowers in town. And they have to be 5 to get a card. So that's a pretty high number.
And if I could, so as you know, we don't fully fund the library. So they also have a budget that they have a supplemental budget. And these are, they have a supplemental budget this year. They're proposing $123,050. Now this is all approved through their board of directors.
And sometimes it does have to get increased. They do have to draw down more if the need is there, but we have restrictions on it. We can't use it.
Can you just explain, Lee, where the money comes from?
Yeah, so there's a trust that was, when they built the library, they had money from the Balfour Foundation, and it was for the building of the library, and then some money left for the perpetuity of the trust, like forever. They want it to be forever. And we also do fundraising, and there's also income from the trust, and we can draw down on the interest only, a percentage on the interest. And I think that they're drawing down 65,000, I think, a year. I don't know if Bob Berg is online.
Yes.
I am here.
I wasn't going to make you talk, Bob, but Lee is.
Well, he has all the figures right on the top of his head.
If I could, Madam Chairman, we draw down about $65,000 per year from the trust fund. Obviously, we don't like to exceed the IRS guidelines. And in addition to that, we also get the state aid depending on, assuming we meet the state requirements as far as hours of operation and materials purchases. And this year, it's a little bit higher. It's for fiscal year 2022, it'll be $34,000. And as Lee mentioned, in prior years, we had other income from fines, from book sales. Fines have gone away. So that's, at one time, fines were probably $10,000 or $11,000 a year. So, and then over the years, it gradually came down, and now they've been totally eliminated. So those are the items that fund our supplemental budget. The agreement with the town is that the town would pay for the salaries, it'd pay for the materials, and they pay for our membership in the sales network. There have been years when the funding from the town wasn't quite there, so we had to use supplemental funds to make up for the materials purchases so that we were able to keep our state aid. One other item that's the generosity of the Friends of the Library. They're very instrumental in offsetting some of the expenses on things like passes or other programs that go on in the library. So that's how we come up with the funds for the supplemental side. I will say that over the years, the utilities have spiked, and the numbers I put in there for fiscal year 2023 are only estimates. I can't tell you how much electricity will cost next year. I can't tell you how much the gas to run the library will cost next year. But suffice to say, they'll probably be higher. So in some cases, I did increase the numbers. But those are the main expenses that we endure during the year in operating the library.
We also pay for the park, the grounds. I don't know if anybody has been to the library lately. We have new signs in the park, new benches. It's looking great.
And one other thing, if I might, as the building gets older, we pay for the expenses of the building. A couple of years ago, the town did pay for the roof replacement of the library, which was a substantial number. But that same year, we had to expend money for the HVAC system, which amounted to, I believe, around $60,000-$70,000. So there are some direct expenses that, in some cases, we have to ask the trust fund if we could take some extra money to pay for these unforeseen expenses.
We just put in a new floor in the community room too. So the select board would be very happy to see that.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions for Lee or for Bob? Does not look like anyone has questions.
Welcome to all the new members.
We have so many new members.
I know. Oh.
All right. Well, thank you both very much. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Lee.
Okay.
Okay. I know I saw Caitlin on before.
I saw her, but I also had an email that she couldn't make it tonight. So I wonder if she had to
Okay.
pop off.
Well, let me share my screen again. And let me find recreation. Okay. So
I see the library budget supplemental.
still?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see recreation?
Yes.
Okay. So recreation, we have the one staff person that averages 25 hours a week. And the salary request is $27,539. Electricity, $2,500. Water and sewer, $1,200. And then repair maintenance of equipment, 1,300. Buildings, 1,000. Grounds, 1,000. Telephone communications, 2,000. Contracted services, 5,000. And other supplies, 1,800. And the majority of these expenses are obviously for the pool. Any questions?
Anybody have questions? I'm not hearing any questions.
All right. So next, we'll go to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning department, they have 2 staff people. Let me get their budget up. So in planning, they have the director and the clerk, and the salary is $131,930. Advertising, 1,000. Engineering, 1,000, and some other smaller miscellaneous expenses for telephone communications and office supplies. And conferences, $770.
Does anyone have questions on the planning budget?
In zoning, $300. Just a slight budget for any possibility of office supplies, or if they have to do an ad, or so. Very small budget. And I will say, the chairman of the zoning board, who's been chairman for years, does a great job. If you have a chance, especially with Zoom, hop on some night. I mean, no one even really knows or sees the zoning board unless you go before them. And he's an attorney and has contributed a lot of time. I really appreciate everything he does.
Excellent.
And the last budget for the night is conservation. Grab that. So conservation, we have 2 staff people also, full-time clerk and the conservation director, $129,021 for their salaries, and $3,400 for incentive pay, for a total of $132,421. And then their expenses for maintenance of conservation areas, slight increase there from the $12,000 to the $13,426, and the rest of the expenses are pretty much the same as the year before. I know John, if you haven't met John, he does a great job, and he's looking to do some work this year and bring some of the trails back and promoting some more use of the trails by residents, as long with the work they do as far as reviewing projects also.
Any questions on this? All right. Seems like nobody has any conservation questions either.
And John presented before Capital tonight before he headed off to his meeting. And just show you for his FY23. So 2 of the requests he's looking for, some renovations of the lodge and some tree clearing. Down at Camp Edith Reed, 11,500. And he's also looking to institute a 3-year program of surveying and town conservation areas. I believe he said, and Zach, if you correct me if I'm wrong, there's about 30 locations in town, and they're looking to do 10 a year for 3 years, and have a consultant develop a plan, letting them know any encroachments on the property or any improvements that need to be made to those properties. Let me just switch this.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Steve.
Mike, I'm just curious, has that never been done? Are these surveys brand new?
He says he cannot find any record of it ever being done. I know it hasn't been done since I've been here. So it's a new effort on his part.
And do we feel there are potential encroachments?
There could be. I know there's one parcel in town that isn't owned by us, and this wouldn't be part of it. Land Preservation owns it, and I looked at the satellite shot on the assessor's map one day, and I'm like, it's not like a little encroachment. I said to them, this person is using your property. You got to get out there. So, he's concerned that we may have the same situations in some of our properties. So he'll work along with the consultant to do some of this work and, get out there and try and figure the situation out. But just on Camp Edith Reed, the $10,000 that he's looking at would be Edith Reed Lodge work, and then also in some of the conservation areas, doing some ADA compliant trail work. And then at Camp Edith Reed, the pool bathroom roof and small outbuildings need some work. It's going to work with the vocational school to do the work. And so we'll just have to buy the supplies.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Steve.
Mike, what kind of revenue are we receiving on the rental of Edith Reed? Is it enough to offset half these costs or any of these costs?
We had last year, we really didn't utilize it. He's looking to do that this year, and any costs any revenue that we pull in will go to offset the costs.
And I know we got some grants last year. Are they no longer available?
We're looking at anything we can, and also volunteers to do some of the work.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And Chair?
Mike, go ahead.
Mike, on the encroachment piece of it, if it turns out that there is encroachment there, what type of remedies do we have, and will that incur additional cost?
It shouldn't, as long as people comply. I mean, we would notify people to remove any encroachment that they may have on our property, as long as we get them on notice, and then that's a decision we'd have to make later. As long as we notify them and they know, we're protecting our rights once we find out that they're encroaching. And if they don't, if it's something that is really detrimental to the property, we'd obviously, if we had to, we'd have to go to court, but hopefully we don't have to.
Okay. All right.
Mike, with that said, is surveying required to take those steps, or do we be somewhat proactive? If it's that egregious?
If we think, some of the properties may not need a survey, but if we see that there's something and it's close, we would have to do a survey. But, John's hoping that he can walk out there with the consultants and look at the property and try and avoid some of those costs. But if it's something that's close and debatable, we'd have to set the property line so people could see what we're talking about.
And just curious, I know there's another case that's dealing with conservation. What have we spent in legal fees so far on that case?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can check into that for you.
Thanks.
Yep.
And Mike, just to close this out,
Yeah.
on the surveying, I would expect that some of the more recently acquired properties should have recent surveys. For example, Edith Reed, I can tell
Right.
you there were fluorescent pink little flags that said property line, like
Yeah.
at
The
the
newer-
time of that sale.
Yep, the newer ones would.
So hopefully we won't have to pay to duplicate that work.
No.
Go ahead, Kevin. Oh, we can barely hear you.
Is that any better?
I think you're good.
Yep, I can hear you.
Mike, going back to the surveying, if some of these haven't been done in years, is there the potential that land could have changed hands multiple times and there's any encroachment and we could get into a protracted legal battle?
I don't anticipate that, but you never know. Obviously, people cannot take public property by eminent domain, so we'd just have to make it clear if there was something on our property. We'd make that clear to them, and I'm sure as soon as they check with their attorney, they'd find that out and would remove whatever they have on our property.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Joe.
So following up on that, Mike, if it was a situation where if property had changed hands a couple of times, what happens if we can't prove that whatever's there actually belongs to any of those abutters? So, say a person 2 owners ago put a whole bunch of barrels on the conservation land, and the new owners know nothing about it and say, well, that's not ours. How do
Yeah, I don't think we'd be looking at stuff like that. I think it would be more structures.
Okay.
If someone constructed a structure, anything like that, we'd clean it off.
Okay.
Right. I mean, just to use my own backyard as an example, I know that somewhere back there in the woods, there is a line that is the Land Preservation Society of Norton's property. And then somewhere past that is Edith Reed, which is town property. So if I want to put something back there, I would have to figure out where those lines were.
Okay. I wasn't thinking in terms of structures. I was thinking more detritus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you always buy the title insurance.
Yeah. That's a different discussion.
Absolutely.
The story I always tell at Units Engineering, we did a mortgage plot plan on a piece of property, and then the person was refinancing, and I went out and then I called the attorney and I said, we can't certify it. They put an above ground pool over the property line. And the owner was fuming. He's like, what are you talking about? I went right by the grass cut line when I put my pool up. I'm like, yeah, grass cut line doesn't necessarily mean property line.
Crazy times. All right. Anything else for us, Mike?
Nope, I'm all set.
All right. I would invite everyone to have a conversation then about our delightful meeting last week and how we would like to proceed with our meetings going forward.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would suggest that we do either all in person or all by remote, but the hybrid option seems to be not the best way to do things. So I'm for either one. Whatever, I prefer to do them remote, but you know, certainly in person would be better than what we had last week.
I agree.
So,
Other thoughts or comments?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Bill.
So I guess to that point, I really think we need to figure out the technological issues of last week. Because I don't think it's really fair to put anybody in that position to have to, you know, to have to say, hey, I can only do this remote, or I can't do it at all. So when I was chair, I know we voted on something that basically said, as long as there are enough bodies in the room, that people can be remote. We voted on that.
Right.
We voted affirmatively. So I think we need to figure out the technological issues and just move forward. And those who can and want to be in a central meeting place, great. And those who can't, for whatever reason, and none of us really need to know someone's personal reason, then we should still be accommodated.
Chair?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
I apologize. I wasn't there last week. Can somebody give just a very high level, quick overview of what we're talking about at this point?
Sure. From what we could tell was happening, who was in the room? Paula, Joe, Zach, and myself were in the room at the media center with Mike and with Chief Clark, and everyone else was on Zoom. And in the room, we had the Zoom set up on a big screen, and we had all these gadgets going. But what was happening is that the microphones in the room were picking up the audio of the people on Zoom when they were speaking and feeding it back into the Zoom audio. So for the people in the room, it was fine. But for the people on Zoom, if Bonnie was talking, everyone could hear Bonnie talking like 6 times. So what ended up happening was Charlene kept putting the room on mute when people on Zoom were talking, but the computer to unmute us was like all the way on the other side of the room, and Shane kept having to walk away from the camera to go unmute us whenever we needed to be unmuted because we had no access to the computer to unmute ourselves. It's a very challenging way to run a meeting when you can't take yourself off mute.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Joe.
So, Bill, I agree with you in terms of, you know, not wanting to force people into the situation. I think the challenge we face is Shane said that he had spent a number of hours last Monday doing a whole bunch of testing on that stuff, and he thought it was working okay. So we find ourselves in this bizarre situation of we don't have any control over the audio or the technology, yet we're completely reliant on it, and it's difficult when you show up and expect everything to be fine and then find out that it's not. And it's you know, that's why I think it's, at least in the short term, one or the other might be better. And honestly, if the state's going to allow us to continue to do remote, I'm just as soon continue to do remote. If we had to make a choice between one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we probably added 20 to 30 minutes to the length of our meeting last week with our technical difficulties easily. And it's not because I enjoy all of you. After a long work day and a long conversation, I didn't need 20 to 30 minutes of technical difficulties last Monday night.
But to that end, once we figured it out, it went a lot smoother. The majority of time wasted was in the beginning when we kept trying to figure out, you know, who's causing it, and it went from, hey, your phone is active, muted, to eventually figuring it out. So once you figured it out, now you know the issue, you know the solution. You know, I don't see how this is now
But
a
we
big deal.
don't know the solution yet, because the only solution was to mute the room, which caused its own set of issues. I think
Right.
the real solution is to find a microphone that doesn't feed back, but that's out of our hands.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Zach.
I guess I got a few thoughts on this. I think as a town in general, we should decide what the, meetings format should be. I mean, we got school committee insisting in person only, no remote. Select board is going back and forth. The different committees are going back and forth. I mean, what is the new normal? Do we get back to normal, or is this the new normal? I mean, what is it, that we want to do as a town? It's a hodgepodge of everything at this point, with all the various committees doing a different thing. I'm not sure that's, the right service for the residents. Not that many of them attend either way, but just saying. Also, we should probably, reach out to Jason, I think, is the director there, and say, hey, can you fix these issues, or can you not? These are the issues we had. We can simply look at the video and see what it is, and then go from there. At least give them a shot to try to resolve. They've always worked with everybody in town.
I don't disagree that we should level set with perhaps the select board and the school committee, but I will also say I think there's a major difference between managing a meeting in a board of 5 people and managing a meeting on a board of 11 people. And what works for them will not necessarily work effectively for us, just because there are almost twice or more than twice as many of us. Because it is much more difficult to control the conversation when you have 11 people giving input than when you have 5.
And Madam Chair, to that point, I think I sort of alluded to this last week as well, but thankfully we didn't have a large public contingent there for that meeting last week.
No, we didn't.
And if we did, imagine a situation where we did have 10 or 15 or 20 folks who wanted to come talk about some hot issue. I mean, it just would not be possible to conduct a meeting like that. So, and I totally agree with Bill, that, if we could get to a place where we're comfortable, where the technology issues are resolved, then to give people the option would be ideal, right? To be able to say, like, we're going to do hybrid. If you can make it, great. If you can't, do it online, and it would all work perfectly. I just don't know how soon that can possibly happen, just because it didn't really work last week. So,
and the remote participation that we approved when Bill was chair was a much lower tech solution than this. It was basically you're on a speakerphone in the room, and we put you on mute on the speakerphone, and whenever something is being discussed, we take you off mute and ask you if you want to say anything, and then put you back on mute. So it was not this interactive video conferencing kind of a solution. It was, Kevin Snyder's on the phone and we leave you on mute for 15 minutes, and then we're like, hey Kevin, you got any questions about the highway budget? And then you're off mute and you ask your question, and then we put you back where you were. So I guess with all of these things said, I know you guys voted at the first meeting the end of February that I missed because of my vacation, but would we like to have another vote? And I would tend to think that maybe we either vote tonight, or I can reach out to Jason tomorrow and see what we can find out about other options from a technological standpoint, and then we can vote next week.
Madam Chair, just one quick question for Mike.
Sure, Steve.
We have an IT consultant as well as a communication consultant, right? This seems to be a very simple problem that, can somebody lay eyes and fix this solution? It doesn't seem like it's that difficult.
Jason would be the expert on that, and that would be the person to reach out to, yes.
So can't we as a town, instead of Amy going one-on-one to Jason, can't we as a town call him and figure out what the solution is? Seems very simplistic.
Yeah, I mean, Amy or I can reach out to Jace tomorrow and make sure that it's straightened out.
Thank you.
Or we both can.
Either
Why
way.
why don't we do that?
All right, that sounds fabulous.
Madam Chair, if I could just ask a question for Mike, units. Is this an issue of, and you might not know the answer to this, Mike, but is this an issue of technology? Like, do we need better equipment? Is there anything that we need that could make this, more possible? And do we need to budget for something like that? I mean, I think if this is the way the world is going, maybe we need to invest in some equipment. And I just, honestly, that question comes from not having any idea if that's even an issue or if it's even possible.
Well, it wouldn't be something we have to budget for because this is under the purview of cable and they're a separate nonprofit. So, the issue is, we could do live meetings, we can do Zoom meetings. The issue is doing a meeting where they're filming it live, creating the feedback. So it's an issue that, I'm sure they'll have to address.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments on last week's meeting or what we should do going forward?
Well, you suggested whether or not we wait to vote. My suggestion would be let's hold off on the vote until you or Mike or both talk to Jason and see if there's a short-term solution and go from there.
Okay. So we will plan for next week to meet on Zoom unless you hear from me that Jason has a better solution. And if Jason has a better solution, what I may do is tap a non-quorum subset of you to help test the solution before we get everyone and a bunch of town hall employees on here and waste 30 minutes trying to figure out why nobody can talk in here.
I'm happy to help with that testing.
Thanks, Joe.
It's always been my dream to be on a non-quorum subset group.
Come on, that's like the fun party part of FinCom. Anyhow, we have a bunch of minutes that we are sadly egregiously late in approving. So if everyone could bear with me for a few more minutes while we look at these, I can hopefully put them up on my screen.
I'll sign off, Amy.
Yes,
You all set with me? Thanks.
I think so.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Mike. As long as you don't disconnect and hang up on all of us. All right, can you see my minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
Barely.
So here's what I would like to say about these minutes. The minutes of our new recording secretary are a little mixed up. Like, as you can see, we have our guests in the attendance with the rest of us. I don't know how people feel about this. How I feel about this is that I do not have time to rewrite these minutes.
I honestly don't think it's up to us to rewrite them, Amy. I think we should give the correct protocol to the recording secretary and have them formatted in that
Okay.
format. Because honestly, I can barely see what's here, and if you're going to ask us to vote on those tonight, I would not be able to vote based on what I'm seeing here right now on my screen.
All right. I will send these back and ask to have them kind of formatted to match the agendas in that way. And then I'll ask to have some of these other things updated. All right, well, in that case, we will send these back. We will vote when we get them returned to us. And we will table this for now.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Oh, Bonnie first, then Bill.
I beat you, Bill. It looks to me like those are very detailed, and I'm not sure if we want to give the feedback that they don't necessarily need to be as detailed as they were, because I don't know that any of us are going to remember those specifics. Certainly not. I think the first one you just showed us was 6 months ago. But even with, and typically they're not as detailed. So I don't know if that's something that is preferred, but it's not how they've been typically written in the past.
I will give that feedback as well. Bill.
So, is there, I know we're kind of prisoner to not having our own recording secretary any longer, but is there any agreement time-wise that if we have a meeting tonight that we should expect minutes by, if not next week, the week after? Because 6 months ago, I'm just going to say, looks good, move on, because who remembers?
Right. I don't know about any turnaround time agreements or service levels or things like that. I know that per open meeting law, I think we're supposed to have minutes approved within 2 meetings of when the meeting took place. Like, so if you meet, they don't set like a specific time frame. If you meet monthly, you should have your minutes done within 2 meetings from when they took place. If you meet weekly, it gets a little harder, but that's what the baseline is supposed to be. I have had these minutes for a while because we didn't have any meetings from like October until 3 weeks ago. And I'll be honest that I sent at least one set of them back already and said, this isn't formatted properly. Can you fix them all? And this is what I have. So I will send them all back again. I will try to be very prescriptive in what they need to look like, and we will do the best we can.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Steve.
Just one last comment, and I know we had a conversation last year regarding the detail of the minutes. We wanted something in between, not so detailed and not so abbreviated, so we could figure out some of the things we were talking about. That's my only comment. So whatever we do, we have to meet that middle ground where there is enough detail for us to remember the conversation 6 months from now, but maybe not so detailed to an eraser or a pencil drop. Not being able to see it, I don't know how detailed it is.
It's very detailed. So, all right. Anything else? Hearing nothing. I, at 8:20, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Second.
Motion and 2 seconds. Anything further? Hearing nothing. I will take a vote. Joe Parker.
Yes.
Laura Tundy.
Yes.
Elena Gordon.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Kevin B. I saw you say yes, even if I didn't hear you. Steve Evans.
Yes.
Kevin S. Kevin Snyder.
Yes.
Thank you. And I also am a yes, so that is unanimous. Everyone have a lovely evening.